The mountains were still, unnaturally so, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Alexei lay pressed against the cold stone, his body molded into the slope after hours of immobility. Snow and dust clung to his camouflage, blurring the outline of his figure until he became just another fracture in the rock. Every muscle burned, every joint protested, but he ignored it. Pain was temporary, a mistake was forever. Through the scope, the valley below appeared closer than it truly was. Tents, armored vehicles, antennas swaying slightly in the wind. Armed men moved in practiced patterns, unaware that death had already measured the distance to their chests. 680 meters. Alexei adjusted the dial with microscopic precision. Wind from the east, steady but deceptive. He had learned long ago not to trust mountains, they lied with echoes and invisible currents. His breathing slowed. One inhale, one exhale. The world narrowed until there was only the crosshair and the man stepping out of the central command tent. The general. The radio in his ear crackled softly, barely louder than the wind. Target confirmed. Confirmed, Alexei whispered, his voice flat, professional. Clear to engage. His finger rested against the trigger, not pulling, only waiting. He felt the familiar calm settle in, the silence that came right before the shot, when conscience faded and instinct took over. Then something shifted. A figure entered the edge of his scope. Wrong angle, wrong rhythm. Not infantry, not security. The way she moved was economical, precise, as if every step had already been calculated minutes before it happened. Alexei stiffened. She wore similar camouflage, her rifle cradled close, barrel angled down but ready. A professional. A sniper. His pulse ticked upward despite himself. She stopped. Slowly, deliberately, she raised her head. For a fraction of a second, Alexei thought it was impossible, that distance, that angle. But then her gaze lifted just enough, and he knew. She felt him. Her eyes locked onto the ridge. Onto him. There was no panic in her face. No surprise. Only focus, sharp and cold, like the moment before a mirror breaks. She did not reach for her weapon. She did not run. She simply looked. A strange, unwelcome recognition flickered through him, crawling up his spine. No, he breathed. The crosshair hovered over her chest now. One small movement of his finger and it would be over. Clean, efficient. But his body refused to obey. In the silence between heartbeats, the mission slipped out of focus, replaced by a memory he hadn't allowed himself to touch in years. The radio hissed again. Take the shot. Alexei didn't answer. She was still watching the ridge. Still watching him. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that whatever happened next, this was no longer just a mission. Heat shimmered above the firing range, turning distant targets into wavering ghosts. Dust clung to skin, to eyelashes, to the backs of hands resting on rifle stocks. The air smelled of metal, oil, and sunburned earth. Alexei lay prone, cheek pressed against the rifle, waiting for the signal. Around him, dozens of trainees breathed too fast, shifted too often, betrayed themselves with impatience. He didn't look at them. He never did. A single shot cracked the air. Dead center. Before the echo faded, another shot followed. Just as precise. Alexei turned his head slightly. 2 lanes to his right, a woman lowered her rifle with calm, unhurried movements. No smile. No need to check the target. She already knew. Instructor's going to hate you, Alexei muttered. She glanced at him, one eyebrow lifting a fraction. Only because I'm right. He smirked despite himself. They were paired that afternoon by accident, or so it seemed. A last-minute change in assignments, a shuffled roster. Alexei noticed her hands first. Steady, scarred, confident. Not decorative, functional. They moved through drills in silence at first. Observation, range estimation, wind calls. Their answers matched more often than not. 600, Alexei said once. 620, she corrected quietly. The instructor checked. 618, she didn't look at him, but he felt the victory anyway. Later, under the brutal sun, they shared water in the narrow strip of shade cast by a concrete wall. Alexei, he said, extending the canteen. Anna, she replied after a beat, taking it. Morozova. Figures, he said, cold as ice. She snorted. That's rich coming from you. You hesitate before the shot. He stiffened. I don't. You do, she said calmly. Half a second, every time. That's called discipline. That's called emotion. He looked at her then, really looked. Dust-streaked face, eyes sharp, assessing, missing nothing. And you? He asked. No hesitation at all. Anna handed back the canteen. Someone has to pull the trigger. The words should have ended the conversation. Instead, they lingered between them. Days turned into weeks. Training intensified. Night drills. Long crawls through mud and freezing water. Live fire exercises where one mistake meant death. They learned each other's breathing patterns, the way soldiers learn cover and concealment. They argued constantly. "You rush," Alexei said during a mock mission briefing. "You overthink," Anna shot back. Yet when they worked together, something clicked. Targets fell faster. Decisions came cleaner. Instructors began pairing them deliberately. Like watching one mind in two bodies, someone said once. They never talked about what they were becoming. There was no room for that. Only missions. Only orders. The night before graduation, they sat on the roof of the barracks, legs dangling over the edge, the base lights flickering below. "After this," Alexei said quietly, "they'll send us anywhere." Anna nodded. Anywhere means everywhere. He wanted to ask her where she hoped to go. Who she hoped to become. Instead, he asked, "If we end up on opposite sides someday, what then?" She was silent for a long time. "Then we do our jobs," she said at last. He searched her face, hoping for something softer. Something human. She didn't give it to him. Orders came the next morning. Different units. Different deployments. Different flags. They never said goodbye. And now, years later, in the crosshairs of his scope, Alexei realized the truth he had avoided since that day on the roof. She had never hesitated. Not then. And not now. The first bullet screamed past his ear and shattered stone behind him. Alexei reacted before sound fully registered, muscle memory ripping him sideways as rock fragments bit into his cheek. He rolled, slid down half a meter, and slammed into a shallow depression just as a second round punched into the ridge where his head had been. Not hers. Too fast. Too careless. A third shooter, he breathed, already tearing the bipod loose and dragging the rifle with him. High ground, southwest, 700 plus. Static. Then, confirmed. Multiple hostiles repositioning. So that was it. The valley below erupted into motion. Shouting, engines, men scattering like ants whose nest had been kicked open. Smoke grenades bloomed in ugly gray flowers. The general vanished into a vehicle. Mission compromised. Alexei crawled, every movement deliberate, slow enough to be invisible. Another shot snapped overhead, closer this time. The shooter was good, but impatient. Pressing, he reached a new position and risked a glance through the scope. She was gone. The place where she had stood was empty, only disturbed gravel and the faint imprint of boots. Relief and unease twisted together in his chest. If she was moving, she was hunting too. A flicker of movement caught his eye, far ridge, near a twisted pine. He adjusted focus. There, a muzzle flash. Alexei fired almost simultaneously. Two shots echoed across the mountains, colliding in the thin air. The hostile sniper dropped, tumbling down the slope, his rifle clattering after him. Silence fell again, heavier than before. Alexei exhaled slowly, one threat down, but the real danger hadn't even shown itself yet. He shifted his scope, scanning instinctively, knowing she could already be watching him from a dozen possible angles. She always chose positions with exits. He had taught her that. No, she had already known. A glint, not a scope, too obvious. A reflection off metal, intentionally brief. A signal. His radio crackled. Enemy units retreating. Orders. Alexei didn't answer. He adjusted his scope just enough to see her now, crouched behind a slab of stone across the ravine. She wasn't aiming at him. Her rifle was lowered, resting across her knees. She raised one hand, two fingers. Then she pointed, not at him, but to the left. A heartbeat later, Alexei caught it. Movement through brush, a remaining hostile team flanking his position. She had saved him. His jaw tightened. He neutralized the threat in two controlled shots, then looked back. She was already standing. For the first time since this began, she brought her rifle up, not rushed, not aggressive. Just ready. Their scopes aligned across the distance. Wind howled between them, carrying dust, smoke, and everything unsaid. Anna's finger rested on the trigger. So did his. They held each other there, suspended in that impossible moment where past and present overlapped, where duty and memory occupied the same breath. Then, slowly, deliberately, she lowered her rifle. She stepped back, and vanished into the rocks. Alexei remained frozen long after she was gone, heart pounding louder than the distant retreating engines. The radio crackled again, impatient now. "Captain, report." He swallowed. "Target escaped," he said. He did not specify which one.